It's so gracious when, you're doing your thing and God gets a hold of you. And then you realize when you start turning your life over to listen to him, he changes you. That old nature is no longer the same. And I was just thinking about me. Man, I liked people, but I didn't like people. I mean, I'd run around with them, in my day, they wanted a cigarette, I'd give them a cigarette, or I'd give them a drink, whatever I was drinking, and that was it. But then when I became a Christian, God put a desire in my heart for people, because I realized how screwed up my life was. And then when I started submitting to him, listening to him, and he started changing me, and I realized that other people are lost too. They have that same nature. And we become Christians, of course, the nature changes. And it's fun just to learn who you are as you become a Christian. And then as he puts this desire in your heart to go out and start ministering to other people, and then they turn their life over to God. And then, of course, with our residential program, they come and live here. You just watch people, how they grow, how they're different than you are, because God created them a little different, and the gifts and all that they've had. And our dear sister here, she's just been sitting back. I don't know how she did it. She's had a grin on her face from the day she came here, and that grin's still there. I never had a chance to ask her, what is it that keeps you grinning?
The peace the Lord gave me the first night that I was here. I came into the program, and I was doing a load of laundry. It was October, so the night was still warm. I could hear the women laughing, and I thought, well, that's a good sign. And I was walking towards the laundry to get my laundry out, and all of a sudden, something hit me in the chest, and at first I thought I was having a heart attack. But then it blossomed into this peace that I've never known before, and that's when I knew I was where I was supposed to be, that God had placed me here, and this is where I needed to be. And that peace has been with me ever since.
Well, this is what is so interesting to me. Like I was saying, how my life was changed, and I like to see other people's lives change too. And evidently, that's where that smile came from.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
When God got a hold of you and changed your life. And as we've gotten to know you, you're pretty sharp. You've been really able to do a lot of things to help us here. For example, working with other people, getting involved in the church with the kids, and helping us find buildings, and on and on and on. Tell us a little bit about you, where you came from, and I understand you were pretty successful before you came here.
Yes. Basically, for 30 years, God gifted me with what I had asked him for when I was little. I said, I want to work with people. And I had a different idea of how I was going to do that, but my first job out of graduate school put me with the YWCA's women's program, which was transitional housing for homeless women. And from there, God let me build other transitional housing programs for the homeless, and kept taking me to different levels and different steps. So my whole emphasis shifted, but he gave me exactly what I asked him for, which was to work and help with people. And my favorite Peanuts character was Linus with his baby blanket. And there was a banner that I used to have that said, I love mankind, it's people I can't stand. On other days, it would be, I love people, I'm not sure about mankind at all. But that, I came from the 60s, I was a kid in the 60s, which means I wasn't into the drugs, so I could actually remember what the message of the 60s was supposed to be, which was to love your neighbor and to help other people. And luckily, I grew up and kept that working through me. And after so many years working in the industry, my parents passed away. I was laid off during the recession. I had a family member pass from cancer, and 6 months later I was diagnosed. And I'd always said, I will never leave California. Nope, I was born and bred, I was gonna stay there. I could travel, but I would never leave California. And that's when God laughed and said, oh, just wait. And little by little, things were taken from me, my home, my car, my possessions, to the point where I had nothing. ended up here in Arizona, again, still dealing with the cancer issue. From there, I ended up at Cass. That was the first time I met somebody from church on the street. But I wasn't ready to give up. Even though I had pneumonia there for 2 months, I was still working on my own knowledge. The minute the fog from the pneumonia cleared, I took my resume, I submitted it to a couple places, and both offered me a position. I took one. After a year and a half there, I was let go and ended up back at Cass, only this time I didn't have a bed. This time I was sitting out on the sidewalk in front of Cass. And I'm like, okay, God, you're doing something with me. What is this? But the whole time I was there, I was protected and I was safe. I never felt threatened. I never felt abandoned. I was never scared. If I had food, I shared it with others. So I was there for about a week, and I went, okay, so you're telling me I need to go into church on the street. So I went in, I talked to Nick Cavaletti. I said, Nick, you know, I don't smoke, I don't drink, and I've never done drugs. Do I fit your program? He goes, let me make a call. So he goes, yep, we can take you. And I said, great. Now I have to go get my clothes. She goes, oh no, we've got clothes for you. And I went, not my size. So I'm sure he thought he'd never see me again. But Thursday, I showed back up and I said, I've got my clothes, I'm ready to go. And you were driving the bus that day. And got on the bus, and you brought me here. And the first place they put me was in the chapel. And I walk into the chapel and I went, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. Because I had had a dream about being in a chapel that had a wall color that I thought was horrendous, and it had a battle sword as a cross. And when I walked in and saw it, I went, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Boy, quite a story. How long have you been a Christian?
Since, as far as I can remember, since I was 4. That's when I knew that I knew that I knew the Lord, and that I knew Jesus, and that he was the love of my life.
So all your life, you felt like God was leading and guiding,
And
working all things out.
My parents were so good, and the best example of Christians you could ever have, because they lived it, they breathed it. We were always involved in the church, and you know, the junior high was at our house. The high school and college Bible studies were at our house. We did missions. We were always involved. And yet, at some point, after graduate school, after having some setbacks, personal setbacks, where, because the Lord had always said, you know, family and kids aren't going to be for you. And I kept trying to fight that, and that never ended well. It ended very badly. And I think after that, I focused too much on work and not enough on the Lord. And I think at some point he said, enough's enough. And he systematically took away everything I had. And by the last thing that I lost, which was my storage, you'd think I'd be upset, but I wasn't. It was like a load was lifted from me. And I knew he had another purpose. But he was patient with me, because when I came here, I thought I knew what he wanted me to do. But he told me to wait until somebody asked. And I'm the type of person, because I've been a director and executive director, I like to go in and solve the problem. And he's like, no, you're supposed to sit and talk to me. And I a couple times jumped the gun and tried to talk to somebody about how to solve the problem. And he kept smacking me back on my butt and saying, no, I said you're supposed to sit and talk to me. So for 6 months, that's what I did. And I was just about ready to go, well, you know, I'm supposed to go into second phase. No one's talked to me. I don't know where I'm going from here, Lord. And I had some other problems, and he solved them. And then that very day, while I'm in the chapel praising him for solving those issues for me, which again, I thought I should have been able to solve by myself because I had been a case manager and counselor. Nah. He made sure that I knew that it was him. And then you came by and you said, can you do what you say you can do? I said, yep. He goes, go do it. It was like, ta-da! It was like God answered a second question for me. And then since then, he taught me something else, because thought I was here for one purpose, which was to help build Church on the Street. And then he went, no, you're also here to build people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay. And that is what he's had me concentrating on, more than even the housing, although we've been doing that on the side.
Mm-hmm.
He's had me working on helping build people, something that he thinks is more important at this point.
You know, I just listen to you, and, you know, I marvel because, like I say, what God put in my heart is to care about people. Mm-hmm. And, of course, in fact, I told God when I first got saved that I would never go out and preach on the street, because when I was a young person, I heard a man preach and turned me off so bad I said I'd never do that. And I wasn't even working really except for temporary employment agencies when I got saved. And then a job opened full-time in a box company on the railroad tracks downtown where a lot of the homeless people were. And next thing you know, I'm out there preaching to them. I really had a desire for people. Before that, I didn't have this desire. It's kind of like what God put in me. And then I started sharing. And then we go to Cass, where you were, and here you are, very, very successful, you know, quote-unquote person as far as society goes. You got your degree, master's degree, so forth. And here you are out in Cass. Well, isn't it interesting how God just says that he's making all things, or can make all things, work together for the good?
Yep.
You needed to be there for certain reasons. I needed to be there to truly help people, working out the plan of God. And now he's got you here, and he's been using you here. And I've heard so many, many, many good reports about you working with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And here you are. I mean, these are the snotty, what would you call these little brats? I mean,
No, but I mean, I was crushed on over Christmas when they didn't know the nativity story. None of them ever heard the nativity story. So these are the kids we need to reach. We need to plant the seed now and water it so that when they grow up, they don't end up out in front of Cass. That they know the Lord is with them, that they know the Lord is their shepherd, and he will forgive everything, you know, if they repent and turn to him. They need to know that now. So I'm big on intervention.
But see, what is amazing, how he's able to use you in so many, many different areas. And I'm sure you feel content. Mm-hmm. You feel, you know, this is, my life is really, truly making sense.
Yes.
And I can see future and doing what God's called me to do, because I know it's him. And we're productive.
Yes.
And then we can go on and live this godly and overcoming life. What do you see the future for you in Church on the Street?
I see it growing. And I see Church on the Street growing. At least that's what the vision that he's put in my head. But not only Church on the Street, Pastor Kevin, Payson, Gallup. We've been looking at properties for all those areas because they're all going to grow.
That's so interesting. What she's talking about is we've got some outreach ministries that are in different cities. And you've been kind of part of that. But to me, the thing that really excites me about you is you're caring about kids. You got a passion for people, tremendous abilities, but you know, you're focusing, you're using your abilities, of course, to help us with Church on the Street. But here you are, caring for the down and outers, the hurting, the kids. What is better than that? Isn't that the heart of God?
Yep. I mean, he told me that I wasn't going to have a family, but this is my family. Those kids are my family. And they're the future, and that's where I'm investing.
God bless you.
Thank you.